Yes, I do the hunting. Yes, I do the gathering.
Oh, hi. Welcome to Prehistory. I'm your host, Neanderthal, and let's get into it. Hey, bestie. Welcome back to the Powerhouse of the Cell, where longevity, belief, and femininity intersect to help us lead longer, healthier, and more intentional lives. On today's episode, we are covering a viral TikTok video where a woman is claiming that she is doing the caveman method of skincare on her face, which led to her face looking like this. And she describes the caveman method as healing her skin barrier by not picking or over exfoliating her face and quitting all skincare cold turkey and also quitting water. Someone said, "What made you think that's how skin works?" And the creator said, "It's called the caveman method. Many people have done it." And this TikTok series, it's not just one video, okay? Like she has a bunch of videos on this topic. It shook, rattled, and rolled a lot of people, so much so that the New York Post actually released an article on her titled, "Can the Minimalist Caveman Method Save Your Skin or Destroy It? Docs weigh in on viral trend." The article goes on to say, "The caveman method is as minimal as it gets. No cleanser, no moisturizer, not even a splash of water. The idea is that going back to basics to ancient times when people didn't have 10-step nightly skincare routines can reset your skin and return it to its healthiest, most natural state." And they quoted a doctor in the article. "As a board certified dermatologist, I can tell you that what you're seeing is not normal." Dr. Jenny Chappell said in a TikTok, "It is a myth to think that your skin will thrive in a state of neglect." Another doctor, Dr. Jennifer Shastri, a dermatologist at Northwestern Medical Group, told the Post, "The caveman routine is most likely contributing to her scaly appearance as the normal skin cell turnover that occurs with gentle washing is not happening." And today's video will not be a critique of her skin because we all know how terrible it is to have your appearance picked apart, but her video does provide a jumping off point onto how we as a society eat up a caveman inspired health and lifestyle trend. Like we literally eat it up every single time, devoured. Okay. And I don't want to be a hater because the desire to adopt these health trends, they may be rooted in truth, in science. But are these specific health trends really actually leading us to the path of health and wellness? Or are they just lead us nowhere? Leading us to health conditions, skin conditions, fatigue, gut issues, seborrheic dermatitis, active fungal infections on our face. And also the overarching question, why do we even want to live like cavemen?
Didn't they die at like 30?
So, what is this fixation with caveman inspired living? And hot take, I am a fan of looking to the past for guidance on longevity, and I'll explain why, so stay tuned. And my other hot take is that we may not be looking at the right history or the full view of history, or even the right interpretation of history for us. Because as we talked about in a past class, scientific research was largely closed to women due to our 28-day cycles and how that affects data analyses. And it makes a lot of scientific research a lot more complicated when you are studying female organisms. And because of that, surprise, surprise, not a surprise, anthropological studies also have a male skew, meaning the caveman wellness trends that are currently sweeping the globe as we speak are heavily, heavily male. And that's why caveman, paleo, ancestral inspired wellness trends so often fail women. And okay, we're not just talking about problems today, okay? We are also proposing a solution, so stay tuned. Now, we have a lot to cover, but before we get into it, I need you to hit the like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you never miss a Powerhouse episode. With that being said, let's get into it. Remember the hunter-gatherer dichotomy where men are hunters and women are gatherers? Debunked by the Scientific American in 2023. Apparently, women were hunters too. Listen to this. Man the Hunter has dominated the study of human evolution for nearly half a century and pervaded popular culture. It is represented in museum dioramas and textbook figures, Saturday morning cartoons, and feature films. The thing is, it's wrong. And the article offered physiological evidence that challenges the assumption that men were inherently more capable hunters, and studies in exercise science suggest that women may be better suited for endurance activities such as long distance running due to physiological factors like the influence of estrogen. The writers also noted that the estrogen receptor, which is the protein that binds the hormone estrogen to then mediate the effects of estrogen in the body, this receptor is apparently twice as old as the testosterone receptor, which is very, very interesting. The writers also offered the increased production of estrogen in females, the role of estrogen in improving fat metabolism, influencing fine motor control and memory, and prevention of hardening of the arteries. Also, the higher presence of adiponectin in females contributes to enhanced fat metabolism, which protects muscle from breakdown. And we see this in real time when females are more regularly dominating ultra endurance events such as the more than 260-mile Montana Spine Foot Race, the 21-mile swim across the English Channel, and the 4,300-mile Trans Am cycling race. And one woman, Sophie Power, ran the 105 Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc race while breastfeeding her baby at rest stations. That is wild. Like, no matter what, these women stay getting their bag. Speaking of getting that bag, let's talk about today's sponsor. I love Isla. Hey bestie, it's Neanderthal. Welcome back to my cave. I'm just getting ready for a little hunt and gather situation. Nothing fancy, just vibes, just survival. First of all, let's address the mammoth in the room. Yes, I am wearing press-ons in the Paleolithic era. These are from I Love Isla. They're reusable, durable, and prehistoric proof. Honestly, like, how do you think we got the fine lines done in the cave paintings? Claws. Okay. Aren't you supposed to be foraging right now? Babe, I stay multitasking, okay? Foraging in one hand, slaying in the other. I'm using crushed cherries as a lip gloss today. Is it poisonous? We'll find out.
Oh my god, it's burning.
How do you hunt with nails? You don't think I can take down a wild boar with a manicure? Watch this. And that's dinner. Girl dinner. Tutorial on the nails. So here's the tea. I pop these on in like a couple minutes while the fire's warming up, and they stay on like through hunting, through gathering, through mammoth stampedes, through tribal council drama. Like, these claws stay on. Anyway, sunset is coming and I have to go collect roots and emotionally regulate. Stay gorgeous, stay primal. The future is female, but so is the past. Now back to the topic. The article also covers the discoveries of ancient female remains with hunting tools that indicate that women actively participated in hunting activities. For example, a 9,000-year-old burial site in Peru revealed a young woman buried with a big game hunting toolkit. Long story short, man the hunter as an archetype that informs a lot of how we view cavemen, cavemen health trends, gender roles, ourselves, and other women is a myth. And okay, like, why are we talking about this? How did we go from skincare experiment gone wrong to caveman wellness trends and now cavemen? Why are we talking about this? Well, if we have all been wrong about man the hunter, what else are we wrong about? Whenever we follow a new viral caveman paleo ancestral inspired health trend, are we actually making ourselves healthier, or are we inadvertently harming ourselves because the foundation on which these trends are built on is largely false? And on a greater social scale, we care that man the hunter as an archetype is a myth, that men evolved to hunt and are more capable at hunting, while women evolved to gather because that's all we're good for, isn't just inaccurate, it is severely limiting. Our unique physiologies have been used in the past to justify our exclusion from the narrative of hunting, from public spaces, public speaking, higher learning, workplaces, the procurement and ownership of resources. We're too feeble-minded, we're too weak, we're too this, we're too that. That's why we must always be inferior. But the reality is, we were just as capable and still are. And we were just as involved, and we still are, even if history says otherwise. When we recognize the evolutionary power of the female body, the resilience coded into our biology, and the stories we've ignored for too long, we don't just see women differently, we allow women to see themselves differently. And that might be the most revolutionary part of all. And this gets us into Elle's hot take that nobody asked for. Okay, here's my whole hot take on the whole caveman health thing. Tia Zacher isn't alone in her desire for a simpler approach to healthcare, to skincare, to lifestyle. In an age of digital and physical access, we are drowning in choices. We are drowning in skincare and health advice, in fitness trends. So this desire for less, for nothing is so understandable. But on another note, this desire to experiment with ancestral, paleo, caveman wellness trends may very well be rooted in science. And this brings us into our little journal club moment. And if you're new here, Journal Club is basically like a book club, but we're talking about a journal article. And the focus is more on depth than breadth. So we're going to focus on one article mostly, but we can branch off into different articles. But usually the goal is to go deeper than wider. Okay, so let's get into it. Today's Journal Club moment is on Routledge et al.'s Hamiltonian Patterns of Age-Dependent Adaptation to Novel Environments. Basically, there's this big theory floating around that a lot of our modern health issues like bloating, brain fog, weight gain, even things like type 2 diabetes or Crohn's might be happening because we're eating totally differently than how our ancestors used to eat. And the theory is that our bodies spent thousands of years adapting to a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, and then the agricultural revolution happened like 10,000 years ago with bread, rice, and milk, and then our bodies were like,
Wait, I'm not used to this. I did not adapt to this. This is not the lifestyle I was accustomed to.
and that's why we see all of the health issues that we are seeing now. And the people who support this theory, they're like the paleo supporters. They say that this sudden shift, especially our reliance on grains and dairy, this might be a mismatch for our metabolism that has for thousands of years been accustomed to the Paleolithic pre-agricultural revolution diet. And they argue, the paleo supporters, that returning to a more ancestral way of eating, like veggies, proteins, fats, and no processed carbs, could improve our health. And this is especially more important for communities that only recently switched to the modern diets and saw their healths decline when they switched to that quote unquote modern diet. But there's a twist. Some scientists actually argue, the anti-paleo people, they argue that humans can adapt pretty quickly. And since the agricultural revolution was about 10,000 years ago, we've had plenty of time. In fact, different populations around the world have already evolved to digest things like dairy because of long histories with farming. Unfortunately, I personally am still of the genre of people who are lactose intolerant, but that doesn't stop me from having a little sweet milky treat here and there. And lab studies show that evolution can work faster than we think, sometimes in just a few generations. So these are two conflicting stances, the pro-paleo people and the anti-paleo people. And here's another thing. In 1966, William Donald Hamilton, famed evolutionary biologist, suggested that adaptation to anything new is age-specific, and that we see more rapid adaptations in younger ages versus in older ages. And it makes sense because if we are to adapt, we want to do it early on to ensure maximum survival and ability to have children and pass on our genes. And this all may mean that us post-agricultural revolution girlies, we may be a-okay with eating agricultural products like bread, rice, and milk, but as we get older, the adaptation that allowed us to thrive on this kind of food may quote-unquote fade. And we may be better off eating on the diet that our bodies have been accustomed to pre-agricultural revolution, aka the paleo diet. So that's like another layer of nuance, but to this day, there is still no consensus on whether to paleo or not to paleo. Although some scientists have attempted to shed a light on the nuances. And that's how we get into this paper, Routledge et al.'s paper. And this paper proposes the Hamiltonian hypothesis. They write, our evolutionary hypothesis of age-dependent adaptation suggests that people with long-standing agricultural ancestry might benefit from adopting a Paleolithic diet only at later adult ages. We call this the Hamiltonian hypothesis. They go on to do experiments on an animal model, and the results support their hypothesis. All this to say, the desire to explore paleo, ancestral, caveman-inspired health and wellness trends, it has some scientific basis. But let's talk about my beef, plural beefs, with the actual health trends that we are seeing, and also how they are failing women. There's three main health trends I wanted to talk about. First is the paleo diet with the mantra, if a caveman couldn't eat it, neither should you. It is perhaps the most famous caveman diet and is based on what humans supposedly ate during the Paleolithic era, which was 2.5 million to 10,000 years ago. And here's what's allowed: meat, fish, eggs, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, healthy fats like olive oil and coconut oil. And what's not allowed are grains like bread, pasta, and rice, dairy, beans, lentils, peanuts, refined sugar, and processed foods. And my beef with the paleo diets is that real quote unquote paleo diets, they were extremely varied based on region, season, and tribe. Some groups ate a lot of starches, some groups ate a lot of fish, some groups ate a lot of meat, and their ways of eating also changed with the seasons. And the next diet is the primal diet, and here's what's allowed. It's basically the same things as paleo, but high-fat dairy like butter, yogurt, and cheese are allowed if it's tolerated. And the focus is on eating like hunter-gatherers, moving like hunter-gatherers, so like barefoot walking and sprinting, and also sleeping according to natural light rhythms. So this one expands the paleo philosophy from food to lifestyle with the goal to live primal every day in every way. And the last one is the most controversial out of all of them, the carnivore diet. It's an extreme ancestral eating movement which allows only animal products like meat, fish, eggs, and some animal fats like butter and lard. Fruits, vegetables, grains, seeds, and nuts, and any and all plant products and derivatives are not allowed. And the philosophy behind this is that the plants are unnecessary and sometimes harmful, and that humans evolved as hypercarnivores. And my beef with this one is that it's not true that we evolved as hypercarnivores. We are opportunistic omnivores. But I would also caveat this with, if it works for you, it works for you. Some people have health conditions that are really alleviated by whatever diet they partake in, so more power to them. But if you don't have that health condition, why would you restrict your diet so extremely? And these three diets, they all are under this broader umbrella of ancestral diets, which is an attempt to recreate what ancient humans ate. And the main focus of the broader ancestral diet is on raw, unprocessed food, fermented food, seasonal eating, and nose to tail eating, so like organ meats and bone broths. And the same thing here whenever people say,
Oh, I'm eating an ancestral diet.
like, okay, which one?
I'm eating like my ancestors.
Okay, which ancestors? Because if we are to follow the findings of evolutionary biology on the topic of aging and longevity, our ancestors evolved on a certain diet. And that certain diet may be different for every population. And what happens when these populations intermarry? What happens when they move around? Like, there's so many factors to consider. So when someone says, I'm eating like my ancestors, I'm eating an ancestral diet, like, okay, which ancestors? Which ancestral diet? And what season? And what time period? And I'm not trying to be insufferable, okay? Like, this is a real question. I want to know too. Have you heard of the blue zones where people live so much longer than people outside of the blue zones? What do these blue zones have in common? They are all eating the same diet that they have been eating for much of recorded history. So whenever we talk about changing diets and this and that and ancestral eating and how to reclaim your health and how to eat in the most optimal way for your own body, a lot of it has to do with knowing where you came from. A lot of it has to do with knowing yourself. That's why the message of the Powerhouse of the Cell is always about knowing who you are and embracing that part of yourself. And basically, the more you know about yourself, the better you can take care of yourself. So the theory is this, not a scientific theory, but like a layman's theory. Here's my way of eating. Not saying you should do it, but this is what I do. Is since I know that I am Filipino, I've been eating Filipino food since I was little. My ancestors are probably also Filipino, although we have a long history of being colonized. We've been colonizees for this whole time. As far as I know, my genetics come from that part of the world where they have eaten a certain kind of way for such a long time. And every time I eat whatever isn't part of my ancestral diet, I could feel it. Like, I don't feel good. Like, I feel bloated. Like, it's just not the vibe. And you may say, aren't you the sourdough queen? Like, I don't know, something about it, like the fermentation in the sourdough, like, it's fine with me. I'm not saying it's like this strict thing, but if I were given a choice, if there's a buffet, I'm gonna go with like my version of my ancestral diet because I know that's what's gonna make me feel good. Am I gonna eat other types of food? Absolutely. Like, absolutely. But when I don't feel good eating a certain type of food, then I'm going to eat less of that. It's all about listening to your body and being in tune with it. Like I said, it's always about knowing yourself and believing in yourself. That's it, point blank, period. So, very interesting to hear what the girlies think in the comments. Have you been eating like this as well? Do you find yourself feeling better when you are eating your quote unquote ancestral diets? So, yeah, let me know in the comments. Okay, another one of my beefs with the primal, caveman, ancestral paleo inspired wellness trends is like the vibe is suffering. When we talk about primal living, we're usually handed this blueprint designed around survival, hunt, endure, dominate. We're sold diets, workouts, and skincare routines meant to make us tougher, leaner, harder. And there's always a suffering vibe.
When a woman gets into ice cold or cold water and gets in there, it invokes such a severe, strong stress response, much stronger than a male's response, that her body goes into more of a shutdown phase where it invokes a sympathetic drive and it doesn't create the metabolic changes that we see with men.
Like, no one can tell me that a cold plunge feels good. Or cutting out carbs forever, not eating plants. Like, I eat up a crudité platter, okay? You're telling me that if I'm on a carnivore diet, like, I cannot eat a crudité platter? No. Or just participating in these ultra restrictive lifestyle trends. Like, no, why is the vibe always suffering? Okay, like the vibe is suffering, the vibe is submission. Like, no, we're not doing any of that anymore. We're still trying to biohack our bodies into these linear models, into things that we could measure in a lab, although they do have their own merits, but like, how is your quality of life? How are you enjoying life? Why is your vibe suffering when the point of extending your lifespan is to have a richer experience of life longer? Like, why are you suffering now? So what, you could add 5 years to your life later? No. So no wonder why whenever women participate in these very restrictive, very extreme wellness trends, it leaves them exhausted, brittle, and disconnected from themselves. So today we're going to remember her. We're going to remember the primal woman, not as a relic of the past, but as a guide for the future of feminine longevity. Like I said, I'm not going to hate on these caveman-inspired health and wellness trends because there is science behind them. And also, they encourage us to be closer to nature, simplify our lives, and engage in positive stress, which may actually induce positive effects in our body, aka hormesis. These are all good things. But here's the thing. So many of these caveman-inspired trends are actually rooted in what we assume were male survival strategies. Wake up and freeze your butt off to build resilience, mental strength, and lower inflammation, aka do a cold plunge. Skip skincare, don't wash your face even with water because your ancestors didn't. Fast until you're dizzy, restrict your diet to meat and raw liver. Take pride in solitary, hyper-individualistic hobbies that isolate you from meaningful human connection. It's giving lone wolf biohacker. It's giving isolated hunter in the tundra. The vibe is suffering. The vibe is isolation. The vibe is submission. Okay? Like, it's not giving health, radiance, community. And what's really talked about is how ancestral health might have looked different for women. Gathering was communal, resting was sacred, movement was rhythmic, embodied and integrated into daily life, not performed as punishment. Women were surviving together. And this focus on individualism sidelines the communal aspects of health and well-being that were vital to ancestral societies and are still vital to us in this day and age. So maybe the path back to health isn't just about this raw primal intensity, it's about remembering the feminine side of evolution too. Nourishment, touch, community, ritual. Because what a lot of people miss in the ancestral living conversation is we are all looking through the rearview mirror. We may never know what it was really like. We only have the products of evolution. We only have artifacts, old tools, some stomach contents. We may very well never know the full truth. But we do know this. Evolution doesn't guarantee health or happiness. It only guarantees reproduction. Daniel E. Lieberman, in his book, The Story of the Human Body, Evolution, Health, and Disease, wrote, We didn't evolve to be healthy, but instead we were selected to have as many offspring as possible under diverse, challenging conditions. As a consequence, we never evolved to make rational choices about what to eat or how to exercise in conditions of abundance and comfort. And that's why William Donald Hamilton's finding that natural selection exerts greater pressure at younger ages versus at older ages, it echoes here. Evolution really couldn't care less about us in our older ages. Unless we start having children later, which that is also a niche aging theory, that if you have children at a later age, that would extend your lifespan, because then evolution will now care about people in their later ages. Like, does that make sense? It's very niche. So while we are romanticizing the ancestral past, it may not even be worth romanticizing at all. Evolution doesn't care about quality of life, about your happiness. It only cares if you have babies. So whenever we blindly follow these caveman-inspired wellness trends, it's like you're not taking into account, were they vibing and thriving? No, it's like, were they able to have babies, period. That's it. And also, there is this myth of the healthy ancestors. I love the comments where they say, like,
Why do we even want to be like cavemen anyway? Didn't they die young?
a lot of them did, but they did get into older ages. But we have gotten so good at improving lifespan. Like, that's not even a question at this point. Like, the focus on lifespan extension, like, we've done it. We have extended life, but we have not extended good health as much as we have extended life. Does that make sense? People are getting sick when they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and then they live up to 90. Like, you still have half of your life and you're not healthy for that? So yeah, that's the focus. It's not about just improving lifespan, period. It's about extending a life worth living. Like, do you want to live this life because you are having a great time? That's the point. So anyway, the romanticization of ancestral health, especially among pre-agricultural hunter-gatherer populations, is both very interesting and very misunderstood. The average life expectancy at birth was often 30 to 40 years, but this was skewed by high infant and child mortality. If someone survived childhood, they could live into their 60s. So this idea that they all died young, why do we even want to be like them? It's not entirely accurate, but it has some truth to it. You know, a lot of them died young. Almost up to half of them died before they were 15. But if they survived past 15, they could live up to 40, 50, 60 years old. And what did they usually die from? They died from infections, from parasites, wounds from animals or conflict with other people, accidents, hunting injuries, malnutrition, childbirth complications, which was a major cause of death for women and still is today. And also exposure to elements. Now, this is the appeal of ancestral living, caveman-inspired wellness trends, is that our ancestors didn't die from cancer, they didn't die from diabetes, they didn't die from these metabolic diseases that we see today. They didn't die from Alzheimer's. And that becomes the selling point of ancestral living, is that, oh, well, our ancestors didn't have all these problems. But take a guess. What is the common theme with these diseases that we are seeing now that our ancestors didn't have? Just throw one out there. They're all age related. They all come about when you are at a later age. So if you don't live up to 40, 50, 60, you will never get the diseases that 40, 50, 60-year-old people have. So the increase of the prevalence of metabolic diseases, Alzheimer's, it's a feature of us being so good at extending life that we actually get to see these diseases now. So this romanticization of ancestral living, because our ancestors never got diabetes, our ancestors never got cancer, they never had the chance to. Okay. And also, it may very well be a factor of us being very good at diagnostics nowadays, that we are able to diagnose these diseases. Before, something was just wrong with them, they had consumption, something was wrong with them, and they died. You know, so that was the vibe back then. So we don't really know. So this argument that our ancestors were healthier than we are, well, it's because they died before they got sick. Okay. Did you know that 50% of people today will develop some form of cancer within their lifetime? 1 in 2, 50%. And that is largely a feature of us getting old enough to develop these cancers. That's not the only reason, but it is a big reason. And I'm not saying that we are not living unhealthy lifestyles, like we are in the best time to be alive ever, but I am very optimistic. I feel like we have a lot of Hamilton references today, but
Look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now. Look around.
I really feel so lucky to be alive right now. I don't know why. I feel like every year just gets better and better, even though it doesn't feel like it. Okay, we're trying to be optimistic girlies. All that to say, I'm not saying that we are not living unhealthy lifestyles. Like, a lot of people are living unhealthy lifestyles, and like, we may actually be living unhealthy lifestyles thinking that we are living healthy lifestyles. So we never really know until later. So I'm not saying that there is nothing to fix right now, but we also must consider that we are seeing a lot of these diseases present day because we are living longer, period. And like I said, look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now. Lifespans are at an all-time high. We clearly do not have a problem extending lifespan, but we do have a problem, like I said, extending health throughout that increased lifespan. Okay, our issue isn't living longer, our issue is staying healthy while we're living longer. So, long story short, there is absolutely no need to romanticize the ancestral past or whatever past, because a lot of the time our perception of it and our recreation of it is built on myths. And I love me a good story, a good fable, a good myth, if it helps us navigate the world we live in. Myths are very important, but if they are unhelpful, if they decrease the quality of our lives, like, why are we adopting these myths? Like, that's not the vibe. But do you know what is the vibe? Tapping into the wisdom of our ancestors without abandoning joy, rest, and connection. Nourishing our bodies with real food and real pleasure. Moving because it feels good, not because it punishes us. Honoring rituals, community, and rest. Living long, not just because we survive, but because we feel alive. Longevity isn't just about hacking your biology for peak optimum performance, it's about remembering the feminine side of evolution. Hunting, period. Gathering, tending, befriending, connecting, creating. That's the vibe. It's remembering that women weren't just passive, they were strategic, vital to group survival. There's evidence that tight-knit social structures and shared child rearing practices promoted well-being. And the tend and befriend model for female stress response supports this, suggesting that women were buffered from stress through connection, not isolation. Also, gathering wasn't secondary. It fed the majority of the calories in the community. While women were hunters as well, the false narrative that women were relegated to only being gatherers to show how inconsequential they were, it falls flat when we find that the majority of the calories consumed by the community were in fact gathered and not hunted. Okay, annoying. So unlike the masculine survive the hunt models, which focuses on isolation and suffering, women's longevity strategies revolved around cyclical rest and repair, which is honoring menstrual cycles and postpartum practices, building reserves, healthy body fat, nutrient storage for reproduction and survival during famine, and also actual reserves of food via fermentation, creating rituals that fostered emotional and spiritual health, which is storytelling, music, shared meals, gossiping, ethical gossip only. In short, women's bodies still need cycles of nourishment, not constant biohacking stressors like extreme fasting, restriction, excessive cold plunges, and other bro-coded biohacking practices that revolve around constant optimization, constant deprivation, constant isolation, constant suffering. Ancestral women, they practiced rhythmic living, not endless grind. They lived according to the seasons, not just the seasons outside of them, but also the seasons within them. They thrived on cycles, restoration, and rest. And this feminine thriving isn't less than masculine toughness. It's a different wisdom entirely. You are not meant to live in constant conquest. You don't need to punish yourself. You don't need to deprive yourself constantly. You don't need to stress yourself for no reason. For what? You don't have to be on the go, go, go all the time. You are a rhythm, a season, a cycle. Let yourself ebb, let yourself flow, let yourself bloom. If you're looking on guidance on how to be a primal woman, how to get back to your roots, how to live a longer, healthier, happier life, you don't need to look any further. Just look within you. Like, the primal woman has always been within you. She is encoded in your genes, and she knows the way forward because you know the way forward. That's all I have for you today. I just want to let you know that your greatest power lies in you knowing yourself, accepting yourself, and embodying yourself fully. And remember, protect your energy. Also, go to iloveelleshop.com and use code SPRING10 to get 10% off your order. That's iloveelleshop.com and use code SPRING10 to get 10% off your order. Thank you so much. Bye.